Welcome to Wildlife Outdoors with your host, Russell and Jose. If you have a passion for conservation of the outdoors, or you're enjoying a calming hike in the mountains, an exhilarating kayak trip on the river, feeling a fish on the end of your line, cooking on an open flame in a primitive campsite, or stalking big game, just waiting for the perfect shot, you're in the right place. So put on your boots and polarized sunglasses and come along for the ride.
Welcome back to another episode of Wildlife Outdoors. Today we have another exciting episode for you guys today. We have a guest that is actually a world traveler. Although she does a lot in the U.S., she's also been overseas quite a few times, and we can't wait to dig into that. But she is also an author and an illustrator of children's books. So today we have Bonnie Kelso. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing very good. I am super excited for this episode. So I see that you've written a few books and been an illustrator for one. So what kind of got you going into wanting to do that?
I've always wanted to do it. Even when I was a little kid, I used to write a bunch of stories and draw pictures, and I try to sell my pictures on the bus going to school to the kids. It's like, here, for a nickel, you can have this drawing. And it was funny. But
that is awesome.
Yeah, it's just a dream that I've always sort of wanted, but I just sort of set it aside for some reason. I think maybe I just wasn't ready. Like I didn't have the ideas for the stories or the confidence or something. Something was holding me back. And so now I'm at that point in my life where it's like, it's now or never. I'm going to do it. And so I just like dove in and, head first and figured out what I was doing, what I needed to do to get published, and just stuck with it and did it. So I'm really glad I did, though. Yeah.
So I noticed that a lot of your books are nature inspired or nature themed. Were those brought about like on experiences that you've had, or just things that you've kind of noticed and were intrigued by, or what were, I guess, the catalyst for writing the inspiration for these books?
Right. Definitely from experience in nature. Like Nudie this was my first one. That's a nudibranch. So when I started diving, I love diving in the ocean and on the reefs and stuff. And it's just so amazing. But what I always was excited was when I saw a nudibranch, because they're just so tiny and really colorful and actually very poisonous. they're just the neatest little animals. And then I was like, there needs to be a children's book about nudibranchs, and not just like a, nonfiction, but one where the personality really comes out of what these little critters are like. So that's what I did Nudie Gill, and he's got a lot of sass, and he's naked, so that always gets the kids laughing.
That's awesome. So I had no clue that those things even existed until I'd say probably maybe 5 years ago. Me and my sister from Alaska were talking, and she at that time was her favorite animal.
Yeah,
and she sent me a picture, and I was just like, that thing is so cool looking. And I don't know anything about them. I just remember that she sent me one, and she's like, oh, this is, my favorite animal. And it's just kind of the picture of it's been stuck in my head, but I really know nothing about them.
I love that. Yeah. My favorite animal too.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Especially now that it's been my debut book. It's like, oh yeah. Oh, you like penguins? Yeah.
Yeah. I do like penguins.
Great.
There's just something about their little waddle and how they toboggan and stuff. I don't know. They just look fun.
Well, you'll have to check out this one. This one's Sea Smiles, and it's got a little penguin in it. So
awesome.
It also has a wolffish, which are a lot of fun.
I
know as like anglers, you guys
yes
know about the
a wolffish is definitely on my list to try to encounter one of those at some point.
Such amazing animals. Yeah,
they are for sure.
So this book, was about. Yeah, this one was about teeth. So like animals with weird teeth, and how to make a little girl feel better about losing her teeth. And like the penguin, they have really hideous mouths. Have you ever seen inside one?
Yeah.
So it's like all those like bristles going backwards and stuff. Like it helps bring the fish in. So
yeah,
but it's just cute because the little guy is like, like, check out my teeth. How do they look? And then they hand him the mirror, and he looks in the mirror, and he's like, oh, I've seen enough. And then she has to cheer him up, because he's all depressed about his teeth looking so weird.
That's hilarious. Yeah, my youngest daughter right now,
I know,
Right? My youngest is going through that right now.
I
She just lost her
know.
first front top tooth, and so she's lost
Oh,
5 now. And her
oh,
other front top tooth is on its way out, and so she's about to have that, toothless grin. And
yes.
yeah, she's kind of going through that.
It's so traumatic. And, when you see your kids go through it too, you revisit that feeling and like your mouth just is like, oh God. And I see my son's tooth like flipping around and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, like, can we just pull it or something? Like, I'm having nightmares that my teeth are
It's
falling
ready.
out. Yeah, it's traumatic. So yeah, I just
Yes,
wanted to make
it
a
definitely
book
is.
that would be kind of funny and maybe help kids with their self confidence again after going through that. Because I mean, gosh, my son is in 7th grade and he's still losing teeth. So it sticks with him for so long. It's such a process.
hmm It is for sure. I don't
Uh
remember how old I was when I lost my last tooth,
huh.
but yeah, I think it was probably somewhere around that age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
Isn't
was
that
Yeah,
in
crazy?
middle school.
man.
And then unless you get your wisdom teeth taken out or something, that sometimes makes it go a little later. But
Yeah,
mm.
yeah. I pulled a tooth when I was in high school. I had a cavity that ended up getting a root canal on, and it was all
Ooh.
cash payment, and they didn't do the crown. And then I just never went back for the crown, and it started cutting up my cheek. And then
Ooh.
at that point, I just didn't know what to do, but it was hurting, and I couldn't afford to go get it fixed, so I just ended up pulling it out with pliers, and it was not fun. So now I got a little spot back here without a tooth in its place.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
a straight up prison
Right.
tooth removal,
Yeah.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
right?
Oh
It
man.
doesn't feel good.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. Ouch.
So you said that you've always had an interest in like drawing and writing and stuff like that. At what
Hmm.
point did you decide to combine and become like an advocate for conservation and exploration through that medium?
Oh wow. Yeah. So I've always loved nature too. When I was about 5 years old, we moved to North Carolina into the Appalachian Mountains area. And like we just walk out the house and it was just all forest. It was so
That is
beautiful.
awesome.
And my parents were city kids. Like they didn't understand the dangers or anything. They would just be like, "Okay, kids, go play." We'd go out in the woods and find snakes and salamanders and bears and all these things, and we'd come back telling mom and dad, "Oh, we saw this and that, and it's this thing chased us," and would be like, "Okay." Yeah, so that was sort of my introduction to nature and wilderness.
That sounds like a great childhood.
It was amazing. Yeah, and so we lived there about 5 years, and then when we moved to the Washington D.C. area, it was more like, okay, we're back in the suburbs now, and not as much excitement that way, in
Right.
that way. But yeah, but I always kept it in my heart, and so I knew, like, you know, it's important to save these places. And I just remember, like, even in Virginia, like behind our house, we had a bunch of townhouses, and behind it was all woods. Uh-oh. Was all woods, but like as we were living there, all the trees got demolished and they put up all these more townhouses, and it was just kind of sad to see it all sort of go away. So
Yeah.
anything I can do to help keep some green wild spaces, I'm all for.
Absolutely. And I think it's awesome that you're writing children's books because it gets kids, at a young age to care about nature and stuff like
Hmm.
that. There's plenty of
Yeah.
books out there that kids can read for entertainment, but not a lot of them have actual meaning behind them and can actually, tell them about something special that can be saved. And so starting with children's books and picture books, like that's just something that I think is amazing because if they're just reading them for entertainment, they don't know what's being said in these books, but it's being pushed into their mind. And I just think it's an
Right.
amazing idea.
Yeah, hopefully they'll remember.
But it's also like educational. Like you're using, real life, like for example, the teeth and things like that. Like it's entertaining, but also educational. It's pretty cool that you're able to combine the two.
Yeah, yeah, I like to do that. They call it informational fiction. So I'm adding a lot of facts about the different animals. But it also has like talking animals, which would be fiction, and
Hmm.
so you can't have a nonfiction book where your animals talk. Unfortunately, that's the rule. So, so that's
Definitely
why they're
makes
calling it
sense.
informational fiction. But yeah, it's my favorite medium because I love just combining the two, and making kids laugh. I think is important too because that always makes them want to read the story again. And like they'll laugh even harder the second time or the third time they read it because they're anticipating it. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now I'd like to kick it to today's sponsor, Foretold Coffee Company. Elevate your outdoor adventures with Foretold Coffee's premium single origin coffees, meticulously roasted to satisfy both specialty coffee professionals and nature enthusiasts alike. Founded by former airborne cavalry scout Joshua Sandoval, his mission is to bring the mountains home with every cup. Experience their 3 flavors, Peruvian cocoa, El Salvadoran bourbon, and Mexican honey, which is my favorite. So check them out at foretoldcoffeeco.com. So you talked a little bit about living in Appalachia and stuff like that. So I've never been over there, but I've done a lot of research. I definitely do want to go over there. But have you actually hiked any of the trails on or off of the Appalachian Trail itself?
The only place we did a lot of hiking was at Grandfather Mountain. So that was near Boone, North Carolina, where I grew up.
Hmm.
And then we would do a lot of skiing too. There's a bunch of different ski mountains there. But yeah, we were too little to do any like major hiking.
I see.
But I used to walk, I was looking on Google Maps the other day and I was like, I used to walk to my friend's house and it was through the woods. Like if you drove to her house, it would take like 30 minutes to go around. But I used
Wow.
to just walk through the woods. And when I looked at it on the map, I was like, oh my God, that was a lot of walking through the woods. I
Right.
must have just talked my parents into it. Like, yeah, it's fine. I know how to get there. I'll just go. I just went.
I know it's that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And you just kind of come out like, oh, there's her house. You know, really weird. But
We used to
yeah.
do similar stuff like that when I lived in Arizona. We lived in
Uh-huh.
Arizona for 8 years when I was a little kid, and I think we moved when I was like, well, I guess it was probably about 7 years, and we moved when I was like 8. But I had 2 older brothers, and we would just go trotting through the desert and find random stuff. And I remember one time we come across this massive snake. To this day, I don't know what kind of snake it was, but I know it was a dark colored snake, possibly like some type of rat snake or king snake or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I remember it was massive, and the first thing we said is it's a cobra, and so we took off running and we were terrified. But we came across so many things in the desert just as kids, walking around, because kind of similarly, like, I don't know if my parents at the time knew the dangers. They were just kind of like, be out of the house,
Right.
go out there and have fun. And so we would catch all sorts of animals and put them in little containers and see which ones would fight. And I mean, we would just get into all sorts of stuff like that.
That's funny.
And there's plenty of creatures in Arizona that
Yeah.
quite vicious.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you ever come across any tarantulas? Do you remember?
Yes, we actually did. And
Cool.
oddly enough, we didn't catch it in the desert. We
Mhm.
caught it at our neighbor's house.
Oh.
It was just in his front yard. They had like a broken down car. I think it was a broken down car. I know we had a broken down car in our yard. I think it was they had a broken down car. Maybe it was just a regular car that they had that
Mhm.
ran. But there was a area underneath where my older brother had caught a tarantula one time,
Oh,
and we
cool.
put it in the container with ants and yeah.
Yeah, they're so neat. It's so neat to come across them in nature. They're so
Hmm.
big and they stand
They
out
are.
so much that you're just like, what's that? And you're like, like 50 feet away from it, but you see it like moving.
Yeah.
You're like, what the? And then you get up close and you're like, oh, okay. Because they're just like, doing their little thing.
Right.
I remember the first time I ever saw one. So my father's from Mexico, and we used to go there at least twice a year, once during the summer, once during the winter to go visit family. And we were walking around, and we saw these kids like kind of gathered around something. And we look, and there's this massive, I mean, to me, I was like, I don't know, probably 4 years old. To me, it was massive, like the biggest spider I've ever seen in my life. Freaked me out. I had a hard time going to bed that night. I just never stepped out of the bed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember one time I was coming up from South Texas and there was a storm that had just blown through, and we waited for the storm before we got on the road to go head back home. And we're driving down the road, and I saw something kind of out of the corner of my eye in the road, and it was a freshly paved road, and it was really hot, but fresh rainstorm had come through, and I just said, I think that was a tarantula. Driving a little bit longer, and I looked, and I was like, there's another one. And so I slowed down. The
Oh,
next one I
wow.
saw, and there was like, I ended up seeing like 5 of them just on this like 5 mile stretch of road. I guess they were out basking after the rainstorm or something. I don't know, but they were like all in the middle of the highway and just
Oh,
kind of
cool.
standing there. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Never seen so many in my life, but they were all like right there.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if they were
Yeah.
like I don't know, like doing something like mating thing or something
Right.
coming out to the open where they could be seen or something. That's so
Yeah,
crazy.
we actually caught 2 of them last year at work, a male and a female, during mating season, and we found them in our warehouse here in Hot Springs,
Hmm.
and they're, I mean, just gorgeous creatures. I wanted to keep one, but I
Hmm.
was like, let it do its thing, But
Right,
there's just
right.
something about me. It's like I always want to keep them.
I didn't know there were tarantulas in Arkansas. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, yep. Caught 2 of them like one day, both in the same day.
Wow.
Yep, pretty cool stuff. I wonder if I still got pictures on my phone. If so, I might put it on the screen.
Yeah, there you go.
So you've had, I assuming count, like you can't even count how many awesome experiences you've had, but are there any experiences or hikes or trips that you've been on that are just always going to be ingrained in your memory?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I mean, they're all there and it's kind of crazy. But I know in New Zealand I had so much fun. New Zealand's really set up for like adventure touring. So
Hmm.
they have it just so well organized. So anywhere you go, it's like, oh, here's some guides, and oh, here's, this, and we have a special bus that can take you there. And they take you to these like remote areas, and you can do these really cool activities. And it's so well organized, and it feels really safe when you're out there doing it because they have all these people who are really, highly trained, and they go out there with you and just make it a really fun experience. Plus, the Kiwi attitude is it's amazing. And they all just love nature and doing things. And, the more extreme, the better. But so that book we were talking about, the one in a cave, that's the one I illustrated. When I
Hmm.
read this manuscript, I immediately went back to the Waitoma Caves in New Zealand, and I was just like, oh, I can see it, like I can see everything, and I want to do this like really natural cave that has water running through it, and because a lot of times, I mean, I know in the States especially, a lot of our caves are drier, like we
Hmm.
don't have the wet ones as much, so I really wanted to show that and give kids an idea of what that might look like. So the Waitoma Caves are very famous for their glowworms. So it gets like you can go on just a really pedestrian kind of tour where you're just in a little boat and you just kind of go down the little river, and they shut off all the lights, and then you can see the glowworms, and it looks like a starry night. And you're in the middle of the
Really?
cave. It's completely pitch black except like little blue stars up all over the ceiling. It's the coolest thing. But
That
then
is
they also
awesome.
do tours where it's more adventure style, and you can like I remember one like we rappelled off this little platform on this like huge like sinkhole kind of thing where it had dropped down. It drops down like 300 feet or something,
Oh,
and
wow.
you literally like rappel down with a couple other people, and then you start your caving down there. And so you're like following this little river around, and you get to see there's like troglobites in the water, and then you get to the dark part and you get to see the glowworms. And then you have to climb this ladder, which is like, all the way back up. So that was kind of scary. Actually, I thought that was scarier climbing up the ladder than going down on the rope. But
Right?
and then they
That
had
sounds
another
pretty
tour.
intense.
Oh yeah, it is intense. And then they had another tour, but they're so great about it. They're like, "You're doing great, don't worry, everyone's fine." And then another tour where you're literally like sliding down these sort of like small openings into, big pools of water, and it's a lot like canyoneering out here, in the West. But oh
Yeah.
my God, so much fun! I had a
That is
blast.
amazing. So excuse my ignorance, but Glowworms.
Glowworms.
I didn't know that a glowworm was a thing.
Right.
Are they like caterpillars? Are they like worms? Do they actually glow, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So they're flies.
Okay.
And the flies, they fly around the cave and stuff. Yeah, the adult flies. But then they lay these larvae,
hmm
and the larva produces like poo that's iridescent. So it's
Really
actually iridescent poo that you're looking at. And they're not
interesting.
worms.
Okay.
But then it's like kind of stringy, and it has this sappy kind of thing that strings down, and it's so bizarre. Like nature is so weird, right?
Yeah.
That's how they catch the flies, and they eat the flies. It's the babies eating their parents. It's really,
Really.
yeah, it's pretty weird.
That is
Talk about full
interesting.
circle. That's crazy.
Right?
So
That's
hopefully the
true
parent
sacrifice
has
for your
laid their
kids.
larvae before they get eaten, but yeah.
Right?
Oh, I
That's
know. It's
crazy.
fascinating. I should
Yeah,
totally
I'm
make a
glad I asked
story
that
about that.
question. You should.
Oh, that's a good
I'll-
question. Like, don't eat your parents. Oh, that would be a great title. Don't eat your parents.
It's definitely an eye-catching one.
Yeah, it is.
So, in what order did you write these books? So you said your first one was Nudie Gill.
Yep. And then I illustrated this one, the cave in a cave.
Okay.
And then I wrote Sea Smiles, which is a 3-part series. So
Okay.
the first one is about teeth and kids losing their teeth. It's kind of a milestones thing for kids. The second one is Sleepy Sea. So it's about sea animals with weird sleep habits. And that's kind of talking about kids who, are having trouble falling asleep. Maybe they're in their own bed for the first time, a lot of that sort of coming back to bed with mom and dad kind of thing. Yeah. So we all go through that. And then the third one is Sea Suds. And that talks about sea animals and how they stay clean, because you think about it, you're in the water, but
Right.
they still get, pretty yucky, and they got to get themselves clean just to take care of themselves. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Talk about cleaning stations and, how some animals in the sea, they shed their skins and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. I like that.
So it's all kind of hygiene related.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's definitely something that kids need to learn. And if you can learn it in an entertaining way involving animals, I think that's an even better way to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's a fun series.
It sounds like you did a lot of research for these books. Was there anything that you came across in that process that you were just like mind blown about, like just totally caught off guard, just totally surprised? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we all love narwhal, right? Narwhals are cool. They're just these, but that's their tooth. That's their canine tooth that just like juts through their lip and comes out.
Really?
It's not a horn. Yeah, it's a tooth. And usually it's the left tooth that always comes out. And like every now and then there's a narwhal that has 2 teeth because it's the canines. It's those little pointy teeth that we have on them. They just go straight up out of their lip. And like the smaller one, for some reason, is always the right one. And it just never gets long like the left one. I mean, why did this happen? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I guess I've never looked at a picture of a real narwhal and just assumed that they were out of the forehead.
You think like, okay, walrus. I understand walrus. It's a tooth. It's a tusk.
Yeah.
It comes down. Like I understand elephant. It's tusks that come up.
Yeah.
But narwhal is like a little different because it's just that one, and it kind of goes like straight out of his face.
And are they made of like ivory and stuff? Do you know? Are they made out of ivory, kind of like an elephant would be, or?
No, it's a tooth. It's a tooth. It's made out of like dentin and stuff. Yeah, like teeth are made out of. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not ivory.
That is very interesting.
So, did you happen to come across like what it's used for? Is it like a mating thing, or for hunting, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, I guess they can. They have been seen using it as like self-defense kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's probably impressive to the female narwhals. I don't know. Like
Right.
maybe I don't know. The females have them too, so I don't know.
Huh.
I think it's just one of those weird things that we don't really 100% understand yet because,
Yeah.
they're kind of shy animals and they're in usually really cold waters. So I don't think they really get as much studying as some of the other animals, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Huh.
narwhals, pretty crazy.
I need to do a little bit more research on them because I guess I
There's my
didn't
picture.
realize.
There's my picture of a narwhal.
That's
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
awesome.
So the penguin's like, hey, watch it with that thing,
So what part of do you know what region they live in? I know nothing about them. I'm realizing
Yeah,
that
they're
now.
like Arctic animals.
Okay.
Up
Hmm.
north. Hmm.
Interesting.
Up
Huh.
north. I wonder what people who saw him for the first time thought. Like, what on earth? Like, that's got to be kind of scary.
I know, right? What is this thing?
Right. That's definitely an
Unicorns.
interesting yeah,
Unicorns of
right?
the sea.
Yep. And that's what I always thought. It's like I thought it just came out of their forehead because I've always heard that term, the unicorns of the
Right.
sea. But I didn't
Right.
know it was a tooth. So
Yeah, and
that's
that's
news to
probably
me.
why we think they're horns. Yeah, they're
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, speaking of them being up north, that is kind of like one of my, which I don't know if they're going to be in this region or not, but one of like my bucket list trips is in Japan, actually. So
Oh, yeah.
when we talked before we started recording, you were saying that you've been to Asian countries. Have you ever been to like Sapporo or Hokkaido, Japan?
Yes, and I actually, let's see, I didn't go to the North Island though.
Okay.
I was on the Middle Island and I went down south more. So my favorite place, well, I mean, Japan is amazing. So anywhere you go in Japan, you're going to have an amazing time. It's gorgeous. The people are amazing. Transportation's awesome. You get on the bullet trains and you can pretty much get around really easily. Um, there is a bit of a language barrier because still there's a lot of people who don't speak English there, and the language is so hard to like comprehend. Like I was such an idiot, and I bought this little hiking book saying hiking in Japan. Well, and the first chapter is like hiking in Japan is really dangerous if you don't know the Japanese language because there's a lot of signage that's only in the language, like it's like is it kanji or something? It's the symbols of the language, and like a lot of the trails aren't marked very well. And then Japanese people love to hike, and sometimes they'll go off trail and they'll make new trails, and some of these trails really don't go anywhere, and you'll end up having to turn around and go back, and it's true, 100% true, because I was there by myself and like an idiot I'm hiking around and I'm getting lost. And I remember like one time, where was this? Oh gosh, I feel like it was on the outskirts of like Kyoto or something. But anyway, I was up in this mountain and hiking around, and I couldn't see anymore. I couldn't really I didn't know what direction I was going anymore because it was so overgrown. There was so much. It's beautiful. Like there's these big gnarly trees. There's moss everywhere. I mean, the wilderness is just amazing. But the mountain was kind of going like this a lot. And then all of a sudden I realized that I don't hear anyone else. I'm alone, totally alone. And then I hear some cracking in the woods, and I'm like, holy crap, what is that? And it's like, I'm like, oh my God. And then I kind of like stop, but every time I make noise, that thing makes noise. And then I finally see this little clearing, and there's a little stream, and there are some wild pigs down there. There's like a mom and her baby. And I was just like, oh my God.
That's insane. That could have been very dangerous.
I know. I know. So I did. I was just kind of like, okay, we're going to turn around and go the other direction.
Right.
Yeah, because you might think, oh, cute pigs. No,
No.
not wild pigs. No. Especially if he's like protecting. its baby.
Right. Wild
But
pigs
then
are
I
definitely
ended up
something you don't want to mess with.
like finally just finding this fence and like jumping over the fence. And then there was like a graveyard there. I had no idea whose graveyard it was. There were spider webs everywhere. I felt like I was in an Indiana Jones movie. And then I finally like got out of that and climbed another fence. And then I was in someone's backyard and I was like, okay, finally there's a house and there's someone's backyard. I hope they don't mind that I'm just like coming through their backyard.
Right.
And then once I got to streets, I was like, okay, now I can figure it out with my map, you know, because I didn't have a cell phone back then. It was like,
Yeah.
we didn't have cell phones. Anyway,
That's
maybe it's
insane.
easier to hike now because you have GPS on your phone, but
I would assume
it was scary back then.
And we got Google Translate too, for all else fails.
Yes, I know. I was roughing it.
Yeah, I've seen some ads where like you can actually take pictures of signs with Google and stuff like that, and it'll translate.
For you? Oh, that's awesome.
So
I really
feel
could
like
use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have got lost in the first place, but hey, you would have never come across and had that little adventure for yourself.
I know,
so.
right? It was
awesome.
exciting.
It's not an adventure until something goes wrong or something like that.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's part that makes it exciting. But yeah, Japan is definitely one of the places I want to go. I actually recently found out that up in Hokkaido, Japan, it's well known for its soft snow. And there's an area where you can go snowboarding or skiing down the mountain, and then there's like 3 or 4 stops with hot springs in them, and they've built lodges at all these hot springs. So you can snowboard, quarter of the mountain, stop, eat breakfast, eat dinner, go hang out in the hot springs, and then just continue on and do that a few times down the mountain. I would love to do that someday.
Yeah.
And then of course fresh sushi. There's a few spots that in this video that I was watching that they weren't really showcased because they're real secretive. Like the sushi chef didn't want to be on camera and they didn't want to give the address or where it's at. And I think they said that only 8 people are allowed in at a time. Like it was like kind of an underground sushi restaurant. Apparently one of the best in the area. And they have their clientele and you have to know someone to know about it type of thing. I was like, oh, I'd love to find a place like that because I love sushi.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're in Japan, even in the cities, it'll just be like a little curtain or something. You won't even know.
Really?
You like peek in there and it's like this huge sushi bar. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is pretty cool. Like,
yeah, Japan is definitely.
The food is amazing, that's for sure, and the hot springs are amazing. I remember like hiking around to different hot springs, and I came to this one, and it was just me and like these 2 old guys, and they were in the spring already, like totally naked. And I was just like, should I do it? Should I get in with it? Like, they're smiling and waving and smiling and stuff. And I was just like, okay, I'll get in.
So I would assume that's just a part of their culture over there, right?
It is. Yeah, it totally is. Yep, they were totally cool.
That's awesome. So with that being my bucket list trip or one of mine, do you have any that you have yet to go on that you would consider a bucket list trip?
Oh, I really didn't get to spend much time in South America. So anywhere in South America, I would be really excited about. Maybe Antarctica. I might like to go down there too, just see what that's like. It's got to be so different. And
right.
I don't know. Maybe in the right circumstances, maybe Arctic. I don't know.
Yeah. See, I love the snow, but I don't know if I could do Antarctica. Like just to go to say I've went would be awesome. But it's so just harsh. It's not like you're just gonna go there for a day and leave. If you're going like you're gonna be there for a good while type of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd be able to do that. But I would say in terms of South America, like that would be an awesome trip. I went to the Eastern Caribbean and I want to try, going to places in the Western Caribbean and kind of experience some of that. But yeah, I just don't think I could do Antarctica.
I definitely wouldn't go swimming.
Yeah.
No diving. But yeah, I've heard from people who've been, they're like, you never get tired of seeing the penguins. They're amazing. So.
Yeah. Penguins are awesome. Yeah, the coldest weather I've ever been in is negative 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and
that's pretty chilly.
It's a little cold. I remember the first time so I'm originally from Alaska, but I didn't grow up in Alaska, and so when I started going back to visit, I think the first winter that I went up there, I must have been like maybe 16 or something like that. And that was back before wireless headphones existed or anything like that. And I was talking on the phone with, I want to say my brother back in Texas. And I walked from my brother in Alaska's. He lived on like, it was like the second or third story, like kind of, I guess it would be considered kind of like a townhome. But I was literally walking down the stairs to go walk around in the snow and then walk back up. And I want to say it was like negative 40 degrees or something. And I just stopped hearing my brother out of nowhere. And I was like, what? Like, did he hang up? And I looked and I was like, the call's still there. And I had a flip phone with, my headphones plugged into it. And it was so cold that it broke my headphones. Like the headphones, the wire froze and broke because it was like negative 40 something outside.
Wow.
So yeah. And then we went to the hot springs there and it was like, I want to say negative 42 when we were there in the hot springs. The hot springs are like 100 and something degrees. And there's signs everywhere that tell you not to flip your hair back when you come out of the water because your hair will freeze instantly. And if you go to flip it back, it'll just break off. And so me and my brother were putting our hair in mohawks and it would just freeze solid. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah, I've been where it's cold and like your eyelashes start to stick together because it's so cold and your eyes feel like they're freezing. Yeah, that's not pleasant.
Your breath freezes all over your face. And so like any type of fuzz you have on your face, it's just going to collect that moisture.
Like icicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's definitely interesting. Well, that happened to me in Arkansas. Dude, you would.
You'd be Father Christmas.
Right? No, this past February, it actually happened to me here in Arkansas. I decided, so I was up in Eureka Springs, and I want to say it got down to like -2 or something. No, it got down to 12 degrees is what it was. And we ended up getting snowed in. We were going to leave, and they were expecting, I think it said 1/4 inch of snow. Snow flurries is what they were expecting when we were going to leave. And it was supposed to come in at like 11 a.m. We're like, oh, we'll have breakfast and hang out a little bit longer to kind of experience the snow a little bit, and then we'll leave. Well, it just snowed heavily for 8 hours. Like it just, that 1/4 inch turned into like 9-12 inches, something like that. And so we ended up staying another night. And that night I was like, well, I'm going to go around town, Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and take these long exposure nighttime photography, pictures all around town. And then I come back and walk into the hotel and I just had like ice everywhere, all over my face, my eyelashes, my eyebrows, my little mustache that I had going at the time was just like solid ice from my breath. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, no. With that being said, still don't think I could do Antarctica.
So you're more prepared than I am. You'll be fine.
I like the cold, but that's just because doesn't it get to like -90 Fahrenheit and stuff like that?
Yeah, but they have you in like vehicles and you're driving around and looking at stuff.
Maybe then. I don't know. So, Jose, do you have any bucket list trips?
Dude, where do I start? If someone walked into the house right now and presented me a ticket, like this ticket will take you anywhere you want to go, I would probably have to say New Zealand. I think New Zealand would be at the top of that list.
Good choice. Good choice. New Zealand's so cool because it's like it has so much to offer. Like when you think of America, we've got the desert, we've got the mountains, we've got the seaside, we've got amazing terrain, right? You think about the Rockies and the Sierra Nevadas and the Appalachians and everything. Well, in New Zealand, it's like you have all that too, but it's all condensed in these two little islands.
Really?
So you can just like get around so much easier and experience all these things. Yeah. So like you might be diving or fishing in one part, and then the next day you might be ice climbing, on a glacier. It's so incredible. Oh, and then the next day you might be like up in a volcano, like looking down into the sulfur pit, or you'll be in a cave, like with the glowworms hanging out. There's just so much diversity in the landscape there. And, you can do a lot of different things in a shorter amount of time.
That is awesome. Yeah, the episode that I believe is going to come out before this one, if I'm not mistaken, we actually had a guest on from New Zealand. And well, she's
Cool.
from South Africa, but she lives in New Zealand, and that's where she does
Hmm.
all her recreation at. And she was explaining to us how things work there, and the lack of regulations in comparison to here in the U.S. And it's just pretty much open to do what you want. And she was also saying that there are quite a few guides for
Hmm.
whatever you decide to be doing. And yeah, New Zealand is definitely up there on my list too.
Yeah, it's cool.
It seems like an awesome place to just go experience nature in general.
Yeah, for sure. And you can skydive and jump off bridges and stuff if you want to. You're really into bungee jumping and
So, of all the places that you have been to, Bonnie, are there any places that you would really love to revisit?
um gosh, yes, all of them. Every time I went somewhere, I
Fair.
was like, I don't have time to do this. I gotta go. Like, I would get these visas, and some of them had expirations. Like I know when I went to China, I could only get a visa for 30 days, and then I had to leave
Mm.
China and then come back for another 30 days because there was just too much to see in China. It was amazing, and I just like, yeah, I guess if I ever come back, I'll do this. I have to look at my journals because I know I wrote down all the things I wanted to come back and do. But now I don't know. I don't know if I, have the stamina to do some of those things now. I'm glad I did it when I did, but
Right.
we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I'd say every place, every place. Um, so amazing.
So, kind of feeding off that, that's obviously an obstacle is that sometimes your visa expires and you don't get to see as much as you want. But are there any other obstacles that you encountered while trying to travel? I know you said you did a lot of traveling, alone and
Yeah,
as a young woman.
I think like, oh, well, that actually, I didn't have much of a problem with that. And everywhere I went, I met other travelers. So
I see.
it's kind of like, you can meet up with people either at like backpacker hostels or bars that people hang out at. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to meet other traveling people.
I see.
And, as Americans, we don't usually get a lot of time to travel.
Hmm.
But other countries, like it's very common for them to take like a year off after high school and just travel. They just do that gap year and just start traveling. So you'll find
Really?
like packs of people from, Germany, England, and all over Europe. So that's fun. Australians love to travel. Australians get like, I don't know, they usually get like 30 days in a row off every year. I don't know what their their work schedule's like, but I met so many who were like had so much vacation time, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so, yeah, if you meet these people through wherever you're staying or whatever you're doing, you can easily like hook up. You could say like, hey, let's rent a car together. I remember renting a car with a friend, and we went to took the ferry to Tasmania when we were in Australia. But yeah, finding people to travel with as a single traveler is not a problem, and it's actually more fun because you can decide like, okay, you're going this way, I'm going to go this way, and you just split, you know and then you meet other people. So it's very empowering because you get to do exactly what you want to do for however long you want to do it. I would say
That is
one of the
awesome.
problems though, gosh, what was I thinking of? It was oh, so like I like to dive, and there was this wreck I really wanted to see in Australia, and I remember like sort of camping out in this one town for like almost a week trying to get to this dive, and the weather just never cooperated, so we never got to go on it. And it's like this
Mm.
world famous dive. Like honestly, now I can't even remember the name of it. But I do remember like waiting in this like really junky hostel for a week trying to like wait the weather out because I really wanted to do it. And then you're like at the point where you're like, oh, I've already invested 4 days, like maybe tomorrow will be the day. But then no, it didn't happen. So eventually I was like, okay, I gotta go.
Ah, that's tough.
And then of course I'd meet someone traveling. They were like, oh yeah, I did it. It was amazing. Just like
Man.
so yeah,
Yeah,
the
that
weather
that
can
would
be a
be rough.
problem sometimes. Yeah.
I see. Especially in if you're camping out and stuff like that, like I can assume that inclement weather can really put a damper on whatever you had planned.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. But I mean, that's encouraging for those that, I mean, even me and others that might be wanting to travel internationally that haven't done it yet or haven't done much of it. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't realize that it was so easy to find other travelers, and there's places that y'all can hang out, and I don't know. It's just, I guess our culture here in the US is far different than,
Yeah.
the
And
others, obviously.
now it's going to be even easier because that was me without a phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have there were no cell phones. No one had cell phones. And we found each
Yeah.
other. And now it's like with cell phones and social media, it's
Right.
easy to find people.
Exactly. Yeah, never thought about that. So
Yeah.
that's definitely encouraging because I definitely want to do that more. And as my kids
Yeah.
get older, I want to be able to take them international and let them experience other cultures and their fullness and
Yeah,
stuff
for
like that.
sure.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I try to do that with food, music, and movies, and help them experience other cultures. But
Hmm.
traveling abroad, I think, is the best way to do it. Kind of learn by immersion.
Exactly. There's no substitute for actually being there in the place and
Absolutely.
experiencing it firsthand.
Yeah, I think it's very important to get people out, kids especially, out in nature.
Hmm.
The more that they experience it, the more they care about it, the more they love it, and the more they want to continue it and be able to pass it on and protect it. So
Exactly. That's
that's kind of
exactly it.
another reason why we're happy to have you on, is because your books kind of follow along with that they're educating children about nature, and the more people that care about nature, the more they're going to take care of it, and that's what we're big on, is conservation. So
For sure.
um, yeah, I absolutely agree with that 100%, and how your books are doing that. I love the ideas.
Great. Thank you.
Of course. So do you have a couple books that are about to come out
Yeah, I
as
have
well?
two new books. One's coming out next month, and it's called Wonder of the Woods. Now, this one was based on my experience in North Carolina, just
Hmm.
having that woods in your backyard. And it's a little girl who's just sort of following animal tracks and listening to the different sounds and smelling the different scents. It's very like into the five senses, and
Hmm.
that's how she's experiencing everything there. But she's also very careful not to like harm anything wherever she's going. So that's a big part of the story, is like,
I see.
being gentle in nature and knowing when to be quiet so that you can listen for the animal
Hmm.
footsteps. And if you wait long enough, you might see the animal come out, or it may show itself to you. So that's kind of a exciting experience when you're in
For
nature.
sure.
And the other one is called Quail Trail, and that one is informational fiction, talking quails. So I love quails. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had your experience with them. They're just so animated and comical in the way they run around and stuff. It's
Hmm.
hilarious. So this one is a little quail chick, and she kind of thinks she knows everything, and her troop leader, Top Knot, that's Top Knot is the troop leader. She's like trying to tell her, you need to stick with the pack, and, don't wander off on your own because you can get into trouble. And, she's like, whatever, I'm going to go up to that hill and see what's there. And of course she gets lost, and just, learns the hard way that, some rules are worth listening to. And
Right.
I thought this would be great for kids and in school, and teachers especially might like it because it might be a fun way to get everyone to line up and, make sure you follow your fellow chicks in the
Yeah,
covey. And
absolutely.
so
That
That's
and
awesome.
and a parent could use it, when they're taking their little ones out in the woods and on trails and stuff
yeah,
as well,
yeah, it
kind of
is
stay
kind of
on the
talking
trail.
about
Yeah.
hiking and how to be safe. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely. I might need to check that one out because my youngest has a tendency to want to go off
wander
trail.
off. Yep.
Yeah, which is great. I love that she has that spirit in her, but at the same time, we got some bears
Right.
in these woods.
I know. For
so
sure.
so where can everybody find all these books at?
Yeah, you can find them anywhere really, on Amazon or any independent bookstore website that you like to sponsor or patron. So yeah,
Okay,
they're all
awesome.
on the internet, easy to find. My publishers, one's in Kentucky and one's in New Jersey, and I'm not really sure where the other one is because it's kind of more of a global publisher. But
I see.
Oh wow.
um, yeah,
That is
They're called
awesome.
Glow
Well, I
Pico.
will make sure that I put all the titles of your books in the description. So
Okay, great.
if anybody wants to check them out, they definitely can. I know I definitely will. There's a few of them that I plan on going and looking at. So yeah, if anybody wants to find those, link will be in the, or links and titles may be in the description. And go check them out. I feel like that they're doing great things. So yeah, is there any other plugs, any new things you have going on that you want to talk about prior to us ending the episode?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of books in the works right now. So I'm doing some more illustration jobs. Also, okay, one is called Goat Math, and I thought you guys would get a kick out of that because I know I just heard that that episode you had with the pack goats.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think that's so awesome. I love goats. I think they're just amazing, and especially the cute little ones.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's going to be fun. It kind of helps kids learn the basics of new math. Because like people like me, I don't know what new math is about, so
Right?
I'm learning too, right?
Yeah, it's crazy the way they do stuff now. It's like I look
Yeah.
at my kids' homework and I'm like, why are y'all doing it that
Yeah,
way?
why? It takes like 4 times as long. What are we doing?
Yeah.
But it'll be explained in a really funny way because it's with goats, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then
like
I've
it.
got Dexter the stand-up dog. He's an internet sensation. He learned to walk on his back legs. That's going to be an exciting book. That's going to be coming out in the fall. And the third one. Let's see. The second one is Sleepy Sea is coming out next spring, and then the following spring will be Sea Suds. So those are in the
Awesome.
works. Yeah.
Okay,
lots of
so
good
the series
stuff.
of that isn't completed yet.
Right. Just have the
I
first one
see.
out right now. Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting though.
So yeah,
Well,
I'm
I'll
busy.
definitely make sure that I put all of these titles in the description. Yeah, it sounds like you're ridiculously busy. That's a lot of projects going on at once.
Yeah, it is. But it's fun.
But it's
I'm
all for a
loving it.
good cause.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time. I feel like that our audience is actually going to enjoy a lot of these titles as well as, possibly go pick them up for themselves. So we appreciate you hopping on and giving us all this information. And other than that, all those that are watching and listening, we appreciate y'all. And we'll catch y'all next time.
This has been Wildlife Outdoors. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook at Wildlife Outdoors and on Instagram at wild.life.outdoors. Let's go live life on the wild side.